Inter-House Persuasive Speech Competition. The judges for today's competition are Ms. Jaspal Man and Ms. Sonia Nawab.
The rules for the inter-house persuasive speech competition are as follows. Each house will have 2 participants, one each from grade 11 and 12. This speech is designed to persuade and must be on a serious topic, although this does not mean that humor and wit might not be useful in the speech. The selection of the topic should be of the speaker's choice. A problem solution approach must be taken, that is, speakers must identify a problem and propose or at least examine one or more solutions to it. The time limit for each speech is 6 to 8 minutes. Props may not be used. If notes are used, only both sides of a single 3:5-inch index cards of notes are allowed. There should be a persuasive element to the speech, although this may take a number of forms. For example, the persuasive aspect might be in convincing the audience that a problem does in fact exist, or in convincing them of the causes of the problem, or that the speaker's proposed solution will solve the problem. There will be a time penalty of 2 points for speeches that are up to 30 seconds under 6 minutes, or up to 30 seconds over 8 minutes. Speakers to please note that the first bell will be rung at 6 minutes, followed by the second one at 8 minutes.
Without further ado, I'd like to call upon stage the first participant from grade 12, Kashvi Wadhwa, with the topic, Indian nationalism is manufactured and not inborn.
My speech starts in 3, 2, 1. No one is born crying out, we must preserve tradition to protect our country, instead of the usual wah, wah, wah. This irrational fear is instilled in citizens by a self-serving government to justify their laziness and inability to actually get work done. Protect our country from what? Preserve which tradition exactly? From religious discrimination to the caste system, these traditions clearly leave much to be desired. Good morning all. I'm Kashvi Wadhwa from class 12C, and today I'll be talking about how Indian nationalism is manufactured and not inborn. A typical definition of nationalism would constitute a sense of belongingness to your country, as well as a sense that your country is superior to others. But what is our nationalism inclined towards? The people, the culture, or the government of the country? In today's day and age, an anti-nationalist is not someone who does not support the development of a country, but simply anyone who chooses to criticize the political or socio-economic state of India. Our government could possibly be the most well-advertised company in the world, with us as consumers taking in advertisement after advertisement willingly. In fact, one of Indian nationalism's main drawbacks is that it struggles to make room for its own contestation. The opposition is delegitimized not because it has differing views on policies, etc., but simply because it is anti-nationalist. You cannot argue with an Indian nationalist because the obvious conclusion would be that you hate your country. Ashokan edicts testify to the fact that at least some Indians many, many years ago conceptualized in India based on ethical conduct and one that transcended religious, linguistic, and cultural differences. Over 2 millennia later, this feeling of community has ruptured, and now these same differences are often highlighted. There is a particular way in which such populist leaders and parties define and mobilize the people such that they become the repository of an in-group identity based on class, religion, ethnicity, etc. This places them in opposition to outsiders who do not belong to the national community. The us versus them sentiment has existed forever, since the first Neanderthal men fought over pieces of meat. But now these pieces of meat have become pieces of land instead. Anyways, in-groups and out-groups. This divide has exponentially increased in today's time as we are pawns in well-thought-out political schemes of those above us. For example, in the building of the Ram Mandir, the people's nationalist sentiments told them to support this decision wholeheartedly, as it was heavily marketed towards them as a victory over the them. But what was the result of this? An eye for an eye, a mosque for a temple. It led to a heavy loss of local jobs, sans reparations, as well as continued sentiments of untouchability. Once again, the higher powers won over the community. We heard the us in pursuit of vindication from the them. It is also central to the ruling Bharatiya Janata Party's narrative that the most salient historical memory for Indians should not be the colonial rule by the British, but instead the 1,000-year subjugation of India by Islam. It is a need for freedom from the British that drove us to form this very nation. It was the origin of nationalist sentiment in India. But this part of history would be erased in favor of a narrative which maximizes their vote bank. This brings me to my next point. If nationalism is in fact inborn, and our solidarity was with all Indians, would the anti-Muslim sentiment be as high as it is today? The Hindutva brand of nationalism is manufactured by people in positions of power who use the deadly tool of misinformation to spread irrational fear and hate. The Indian flag remains gathering dust in our basements, while the saffron flag with the Om symbol stands proudly outside our houses and on the bumpers of our cars. The actual manufacturing is done through a myriad of ways. Have you ever wondered why Bollywood produces such a high volume of military movies every single year, and why this amount keeps increasing year by year? I would like to point out that the plot of all these movies, to put it simply, is Pakistan bad, Pakistan has bomb, and now shirtless Salman Khan will come and save Indians from the bad Muslims. But what is nationalism? Supporting Salman Khan and Shah Rukh Khan as heroes and role models while denying Muslim applicants and intercaste couples housing? This serves as another weapon in the well-stocked arsenal of the government. If such popular and well-liked movies state that all Pakistanis are terrorists, shouldn't that be true? We are told that our country is superior to all other neighboring countries. And why wouldn't that be true? China is full of communists, Bangladesh is full of anarchists, and Pakistan, let's not even get started. But what we aren't told is that the former Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina, was a fascist ruler who won 3 elections without anyone actually voting. For those who don't know, she recently resigned over widespread student-led protests. What we aren't told is that our own decorated Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, was her closest confidant in her first election, a one-party election, and continues to remain her closest ally till date. In fact, as Bangladeshis of our age work hard to rebuild an entire nation from scratch, acting as literal traffic policemen if need be, we are harboring their oppressor in our own country. With great pride, might I add. Forgive me if this is too forward, but isn't Bangladesh a prime example of inborn nationalism? Take a comparison to how nationalism actually began. The concept of nationalism originated in the country of France amidst a revolution. This was made possible only and only by the sense of unity. The people of Bangladesh have taken hold of the future of their country, and they refuse to let anyone manipulate them any longer. This proves my point that in the end, nationalism should be an allegiance to your people and not to your government. This is the one and only route to equitable progress. We will remain divided if we continue to decenter a sense of community as the heart of all progress. Thank you, and Jai Hind.
The judges to please note that the speaker spoke for 7 minutes and 22 seconds.
Thank you, Kashfi, for that insightfully curated speech. Our next participant is Adhiraj Singh Bedi with the topic, The Impact of Words.
Good morning, everyone. Let me make this very simple for you. You don't have to pay attention to my speech at all. In fact, tune me out right now, because anything I say will not affect you, right? But here's the thing. If you're still listening, if you're still there with me right now, it means deep down, you're looking for a reason to stay back. You're expecting something more. So I won't keep you here using empty promises. I will ask you to stay for one reason and one simple reason alone. What if this is the moment that changes everything? What if you're on the brink of something that you never even saw coming? Perhaps a fact that will boggle your mind. You don't believe me? Well, what if I tell you that everything you thought was harmful for you was indeed not very dangerous at all? Take smoking, for example. Ever since your birth, you've been conditioned to believe that it's an early path to grave, that you'll die if you smoke. Smoking kills, right? Imagine smoking at your school, you'll get expelled, of course. But let's pause and challenge that belief. Do you know that the amount of people dying from smoking are 3 times less than the amount of people dying from diabetes? Yet if I pull up a dairy milk to school, no one would say anything. Do you also know that according to a research conducted by the University of California, it's been revealed that the leading cause for lung cancer isn't smoking, it's your DNA. You could smoke for years and years and nothing would ever happen to you. This whole war against smoking is just to restrict the farming of tobacco. Ladies and gentlemen, if you could use your phones to verify the facts that I just stated, you'll soon find out and realize that I just made them up. You see, I'm not trying to advocate for smoking. All I'm trying to prove is that words, when said and articulated in the right manner, can change someone's mind. They can alter your belief. You have the power to bring someone from the slums of life and make a successful person out of them, or destroy someone's happiness using only your words. And we as a society, as individuals, as human beings, we fail to recognize this value, this power that we hold. Seems too good to be true? Well, a simple choice of words can make a difference between someone accepting or rejecting your message. You can have a very beautiful thing to say, but say it in the wrong words, it's gone. And this isn't just an idea, it's grounded in science, by the way. According to a research done by the Journal of Social Psychology, it's been revealed that the way information is presented, the way it's structured and framed, deeply impacts its influence and how it's acted upon. The choice of words, the context, the tone, the pitch, everything plays a crucial role. For example, this power of words that I talk about can be seen throughout history as well. Great leaders have used their oratory skills to inspire nations, bring about monumentous changes, and rally support. Take Martin Luther King Jr.'s iconic speech, "I Have a Dream," as an example. The words he spoke that day had the power to reshape the entire nation's future. Likewise, writers and poets have been able to weave beautiful tapestries of thoughts and expressions using only their words. Take, for example, the works of Shakespeare and Neruda, just to name a few, that have left an impact on us throughout centuries and continents. But most importantly, if you're a person who's been admired, if you're a person who's a role model, anything you say and everything you utter could be taken as the truth. My cousin's friend was a person who absolutely loved his father, idolized his father. He would do anything to make him happy, but naturally, his father wasn't the kind of person who could be easily impressed. Year after year, my cousin's friend tried and tried to make his father happy, but his father was like, nah. First year in college, that friend got straight A's. So he thought to himself, this is it. This is what will finally make my father proud. So he called up his dad and he asked him, "Dad, I got straight A's. Are you proud? Please tell me you're proud, Father." "Yeah, I'm going to have to call you back later, son. I'm busy." "I'm busy" was the single sentence that broke the camel's back. You see, that friend started drinking, doing drugs, hanging out with the wrong crowd. And then suddenly one evening, his mother gets a phone call that her son is in the emergency room, drug overdose. They rushed to the hospital and they saw the doctors trying to bring him back to life, shouting "clear" as they shocked him again, "clear" as they shocked him again, "clear." It is clear that a single word could have saved this life. Just about everybody you encounter is often going through something that's not visible on the outside, but they're facing a battle on the inside. The world is so negative today. You can't even open up your social media feed without being discouraged, your news app without being depressed. And in a world of so many people, of so polarized opinions, you can be so incredibly critical, so undeniably hateful. Someone needs your help, but no, you're too busy. Someone is trying to step out of their comfort zone, but no, we criticize and we keep on criticizing without even knowing their story. So ladies and gentlemen, I strongly believe that in today's world, the problem of not recognizing the effect, the impact your words have on other people is the greatest and most harmful issue facing the society. How can we even begin to solve these global issues, these world-ending threats, or something that affects our society at large, such as inequality, racism, income disparity, without even acknowledging the root cause and solution to the majority of these problems, simply recognizing the effect your words have on other people around you? Science and research have time and again proved that words are full of power. They can heal, they can wound. They can encourage, they can discourage. They can build up, they can tear down. As we have seen in our lives, people get divorces over words. Families are broken apart because of words. People have a poor self-image because of words that were spoken to them by other people. People lose jobs over words. So today I stand before you to urge you to think twice before you say something that can make or break a life. I'm not here to present some facts or figures that make you believe in some scientific solution to this issue. Instead, I urge you to step up to the plate and be accountable for the words you allow to come out of your mouth. Use your words to inspire. Use your words to make this world a better place. You see, words are power. Now make them your power. Ladies and gentlemen, let that be our goal. Thank you.
The judges to please note that the speaker spoke for 7 minutes and 40 seconds.
Thank you, Adhiraj, for such a well-articulated speech. The next participant we have is Lavanya Puri, speaking on the topic, the importance of preserving meritocracies in society.
Judges ready? My time starts in 3, 2, 1. When I told my friends that my topic for today was about a meritocracy, I was met with confused looks, many of which I'm seeing in the audience right now. I find this ironic because we're all living in a meritocracy, or are supposed to be at least, but we don't even know what it looks like. Constitutions all over the world lay down the foundation for a meritocracy through provisions such as equality in opportunity, equality in thought, equality in speech, and so on. But just as constitutions tell us not to let convicted felons run for president or not to let mass murderers become a prime minister, ideals for a meritocracy are nothing but words on paper anymore. So I don't blame you or my friends really for not knowing what a meritocracy is. We've never really lived in one in the first place. A meritocracy, then, is a system in which people are accorded positions of power based upon their capabilities. It can be any power-sharing system. It can be a competition in which athletes compete for podiums. It can be the corporate world or even a household. Let's talk about the household for a second. If the mother is the only person who can manage her 9 to 5 as a lawyer, take care of her children, care for her in-laws as well as her own parents, and maintain the overall sanity of a household, I think that qualifies her to be considered as the head of it, right? But instead, men use some vague, unfounded biological claims that they are superior to us and have been manipulating history for centuries to gaslight us, that in fact, they should be the ones who are the head of the household. That's the system that we actually live in as compared to the system we're supposed to live in. The system we're supposed to live in is a meritocracy. I hope that's made things a little clear. Good morning. My name is Lavanya Aditi Puri from class 12C, and my topic for today is why preserving a meritocracy is important and why it should be the foundation of our society as compared to this pseudo-meritocratic devolved system that we're living in. After the French Revolution, which I assume class 10 has read about approximately 3 times to prepare for their pre-board examinations, many young revolutionaries thought because of the revolution they will now finally be free from the oppressive, arbitrary clutches of royalty and will be free to govern French society upon the basis of merit and capability. This was also the same vision behind abolishing the caste system in India, so that the most downtrodden, overlooked people in our society can be recognized for their talents in the field of legislation, as Professor B.R. Ambedkar was, in fields of policy, in fields of politics, so that they can converge and come together to lead our country to the great post-independent future that we're living in. Yet, last names still matter in India. We're still asked what our professions of our fathers are, even in the most urban areas. Stuff like that matters. And frankly, I don't think France is a real place after the sorry state of affairs they've conducted the Olympics in. I mean, look at the state of the River Seine. This manifests in different ways in our world. In some cases, we know that we are living in unfair scenarios. In the case of a young Bollywood actress, consider this, she'll never be casted because there's an entire dynasty of Khans with more multiplying who'll be casted before her, despite atrocious performances in OTT series such as The Archies, which frankly was disgusting to watch with those accents. If it's not the Khans then, it's cases where we're told that everything is fair, everyone will get equal opportunities, but those actually don't exist. The reality is far from that. Think about the elections. How do we actually elect our candidates? It's certainly not parameters such as their level of education, charisma, or even IQ, because we know half of parliament would be gone if that were the case. Instead, it's vague notions of where they come from or what their last name is. In fact, our political science textbooks sugarcoat it a little by saying that it's actually the people's will through elections, whatever that means. If we assume for a second that absolutely no vote fraud happens in India, no EVMs are rigged, which I'm sure you know otherwise about, since when have we as people been meritocratic and always inclined towards the objective truth? We are highly gullible, irrational creatures whose interests can be co-opted. This is literally why bribery is a concept. This is literally why politicians can continue to win elections on landslide votes by appealing to religious sentiment. Religious sentiment is not objective, it's in fact subjective, highly, not meritocratic. People deal with this reality check of realizing that they don't live in a meritocracy in different ways. Some people just grow disillusioned and tired of fighting the system and instead just choose to quit and integrate with it, while others embrace nepotism and use it to prop themselves up while putting other people down. But the last and arguably the worst category of all are those who spew hollow criticism while being robbed of opportunity by society themselves. They know that their systems are inefficient. They use big words like incompetency. Back in my day, it wasn't like this, to criticize hierarchical structures all around the world. Because note, we all live in hierarchies of some way, shape, and form. This is literally the philosophy in John Locke's book, The Social Contract, in which he posits that an individual gives up a certain amount of their rights to live in the state and get benefits from the state. The state collects taxes, exorbitantly high ones from us, to let us continue to gain the benefits of living in society and not chaos the way the dawn of time worked. My reasons then for wanting a meritocracy are simple. They're twofold. Firstly, not only will we live more efficient lives overall, I think we'll be happier people. Efficiency is something that can be achieved by proving the former. Think of how upset you get when systems fail. Think about your favorite football team having an incompetent goalkeeper and costing you every match. I am obviously talking about Barcelona right now. It's heartbreak to watch matches. Think about your F1 team having incompetent strategists, obviously talking about Ferrari. Your leaders are not elected on fair parameters. Think about what happens when you actually set out things like that matter, such as their level of education, their intelligence, how much they can empathize with the common man. We will be living in a fair world then because there is competency in the system. Now that we know that we're living in an unfair system, how can we break out of it? If you're not feeling as revolutionary as our comrades in Russia did 50 years ago, I don't blame you. If you're not feeling as revolutionary as the students our age did in Bangladesh 2 weeks ago, I don't blame you. Because reforming a system is hard work. I mean, I can barely manage 2 tuitions and my college applications right now. I'm struggling. So I'm going to suggest something that's a little more achievable for everyone, something that we love doing. speaking. And I completely agree with Adhiraj's speech when he says that words have a difference. They can make an impact. This is just a practical application of what he's saying. If we see instances of biases being rampant in a system of people manipulating it, we must call them out. If we're capable of writing 300-word essays that profess our love for Taylor Swift concerts or review the new Nugget Nation menu, I think we can call out the biases that exist within our system. I just need everyone here to hold themselves to a higher standard and to resist taking the path of deceit and opacity that so many people before them have taken, because I believe we're all better people than we let on. So I implore you and I urge you, please speak up when you see cases of a meritocracy being abused. We must use our voices for good, just as we are doing today. Thank you.
The judges to please note that the speaker spoke for 7 minutes and 44 seconds.
Thank you, Lavanya, for a speech delivered with great skill. And our final participant from grade 12 is Saira Mamik with the topic Treatment of Tuberculosis in India.
I will be starting in 3, 2, 1. India has the highest tuberculosis burden of any country in the world, accounting for an estimated 1/5 of global TB cases. It has an estimated prevalence of 3 million TB cases, with 2 million new cases occurring each year. Every year, approximately 280,000 people die due to TB in our country. Yes, that was a lot of numbers, but this is simply the truth. Good morning. My name is Saira Mamik, and today I will be speaking on the treatment of tuberculosis in our country, India, and why immediate attention needs to be brought towards improving the same. Caused by the bacillus Mycobacterium tuberculosis, tuberculosis approximately affects 1 of 4 people worldwide. This disease mainly affects the lungs and is spread through airborne droplets. This means that when a person with active tuberculosis sneezes, coughs, or spits, bacteria is released into the air, which can then be inhaled by people around them, thus infecting them. Every year, nearly 1.5 million people die due to TB worldwide, despite this being a completely preventable and curable disease, making it the world's top infectious killer. In my speech today, I will give the major reasons why tuberculosis treatment in India is not up to the mark and solutions for the same. A fact to be noted is that early diagnosis and initiation of treatment plays a major role in recovering from this infection. Not only does a delay in diagnosis affect the patient, but it also affects the people around them. Tuberculosis is transmitted majorly during the period between the onset of the first cough and the initiation of treatment. The longer this period lasts, the more contagious the disease becomes. When it comes to India, a major reason for late diagnosis or mortality is the lack of awareness. Did you know that the treatment of tuberculosis in the public sector of India is free? And yet this disease remains rampant in our country. It is probable that the people dying of this disease will not include you or me, touch wood, but rather the main victim are the poorer sections of our society. Residents of slums are more vulnerable to this disease because of overcrowding and poverty and should be aware of the free treatment. Treatment for tuberculosis is generally costlier in private settings, pushing the family into a poverty trap, and it may lead to them prematurely stopping the treatment after a few weeks. In some of the studies, literacy has been identified as a key factor deciding the level of awareness. In addition to the literacy level, healthcare providers should reinforce the information related to TB in the community. Village health and nutrition days can be utilized for this purpose. Free diagnosis and free treatment of TB should be known to all, and it will help in improving the health-seeking behavior and adherence to the treatment of tuberculosis. Also, social issues such as stigma associated with TB and isolating the TB patients have to be dealt with during health education sessions. Coming to my second point. Tuberculosis in itself is a scary disease, but it actually gets worse. Multi-drug resistant tuberculosis, or MDR-TB, is a variant of tuberculosis which is resistant to first or second line drugs such as rifampicin or isoniazid. A prominent worldwide strategy to combat this drug resistance infection is the DOTS Plus program, which utilizes individualized treatment regimens based on drug susceptibility testing, which is administered by directly observed therapy. Now, from 2007 to 2010, the DOTS Plus staff of India diagnosed about 5,000 cases of MDR-TB and started treatment for 3,000 of them. However, there is an estimated annual incidence of 99,000 cases of MDR-TB in our country. Thus, the majority of MDR-TB patients are undiagnosed. The two reasons why MDR-TB continues to emerge and spread are the mismanagement of tuberculosis treatment and person-to-person transmission. Most people with TB are cured by a 6-month treatment regimen that is provided to patients with adequate care. Inappropriate or incorrect use of TB drugs, use of ineffective formulations of drugs, and premature treatment interruption can cause drug resistance, which can be transmitted, especially in crowded settings such as prisons and hospitals. Like I had said earlier, patients with TB of the lungs can spread the disease by simply coughing, sneezing, or even talking. Successful management of tuberculosis patients is the responsibility of health systems. First-line DOTS regimens need to be followed strictly, and a scale-up of the DOTS program is essential to increase the number of MDR-TB patients receiving treatment. The default rate in retreatment cases, a major source of drug-resistant TB, remains quite high. Management of drug-resistant TB is a therapeutic challenge that needs to be undertaken by experienced doctors at facilities equipped with quality-assured, accredited laboratories and inpatient and surgical facilities. Improving the efficiency with which suspected MDR-TB cases are referred and tracing patients who are lost to follow-up are both critical, since the best treatment for MDR tuberculosis is to prevent it from developing in the first place. With regard to human resources, the goal is to have the right number of people with the right skills in the right place at the right time, who are motivated and supported to provide the right services to the right people. Health workers at all levels, from physicians and administrators to grassroots level workers, need to be trained. Academic institutions, including medical colleges, schools of nursing, and other allied health institutions, need greater capacity. Beyond initial training, there is a need for retraining, on-the-job training, continued education, and advanced training in management. Training in problem solving, supervision, management, and planning is needed to supplement core training in tuberculosis management. Lastly, ensuring an uninterrupted supply of quality-assured second-line drugs is also a key issue. It is noted that the diagnostic capacity for MDR tuberculosis exceeds the number of patients who can be placed on treatment because of the limited availability of drugs. Rising costs reduce the use of these drugs as well. Addressing this problem will require intervention from government-linked companies and incentives for Indian drug manufacturers to build their capacity to produce better quantity pre-qualified drugs. Tuberculosis might have been around for a while, but continues to wreak havoc on our country. More attention should be brought towards creating a better system for the treatment of this disease, and I hope that my speech today was able to bring awareness to a majority of the well-educated minds seated in this auditorium today. Thank you.
The judges to please note that the speaker spoke for 7 minutes and 5 seconds.
Thank you, Saira. That was truly a thought-provoking and passionate speech. Now I would like to call upon stage our first participant from grade 11, Reva Khanna, with the topic, The Plight of Women.
I will be starting in 3, 2, 1. As a young girl, a believer in goodness, gender equality, universal love and brotherhood, I feel robbed of all my beliefs. My head hangs in shame and my heart is filled with disgust at how women are being treated because of the 2 clashes in Manipur. Ladies and gentlemen, I am talking of the Manipur violence, and especially of the sexual violence unleashed on women by a mob of men trying to solve a fight for tribal supremacy. A small state in India's northeast, one of the 7 sisters, Manipur has seen the worst of the ethnic clashes since April 2023. However, it was the violence against the women of the Kuki tribe by a mob of mighty men that was the most repulsive. Why should women be made victims of political fights between two tribes of men. How can the violence on these women ever be justified? After all, they had nothing to do with the reservations demanded by one tribe, granted by the Manipur High Court amidst objection by the other tribe, but the scars of these horrendous crimes committed on these women and the loss of the loved ones in mob violence will remain alive with them forever. I remember a few years ago, an agency that provides placement for household staff once sent a girl to our place. To our horror, within hours of her reaching our place, she narrated a take on how she was brutally molested in the Naxal clashes in her home state of Chhattisgarh and then trafficked by her tormentors to the agency. As a young girl, I was terrorized to hear her story. We somehow managed to reach the Sisters of Charity, who finally sent her back to her family in Chhattisgarh. I still remember her face and its story, and it gives me shivers. There is also the case of Nirbhaya, a young girl who was brutally raped on a public transport bus and left to die. I have also read of the case of Lakshmi, where a young suitor just could not take no for an answer while proposing to her and threw acid on her, scarring her both physically and mentally for life. There are other cases of Manoj Babli and Jassi, a Canadian girl who were the victims of honor killing, where their own families got them killed for defying their diktat in choosing life partners. I have always been a proud Indian, but when I look at the records of crime against women, I shudder to grow up here, fearing for my safety all the time. We, the women, are almost 50% of the entire population. Yet more than 90% of the violence is faced by us, be it domestic violence, sexual violence, forced marriages, or even acid throwing incidents. The number of the unreported such cases far outnumbers of the reported ones. In the previously released Human Development Index by UN Women and UNDP, India found itself ranked as low on the empowerment of women. Though India fared well in the financial inclusion of women, the empowerment deficit is an astounding 48%, with a gender gap of 44%. In terms of crime against women, the National Crime Records Bureau revealed that there has been an increase in the crimes committed against women by 15.3% in 2021 against 2020. The highest number of incidents were reported in West Bengal and Andhra Pradesh. In 2011, the International Men and Gender Equality Survey questionnaire revealed that at least 24% of men have committed some acts of sexual violence at least once in their lifetime. It is thus imperative, rather extremely urgent, that gender sensitization be taught right from school onwards. Girls and boys need to learn both about violence against women and gender equality. Girls should be taught and encouraged to report any acts of sexual violence committed, and law and lawmakers should be favorable towards them. It should be the topmost priority in families to help the women with their financial empowerment so that they can remain self-reliant. In a land where a woman is held in obeisance as mother goddess and her 9 manifestation, in a land which celebrates the most auspicious of festivals in the name of goddess Durga, and a land which was one of the first to elect a woman as a prime minister, it is indeed a strange dichotomy that we are being treated with such contempt and are being degraded to as second-class citizens of the country. It is thus, after all, we are such stuff that the dreams are made of. We are the creators and preservers of life. The least we deserve is our share of the sky. Thank you.
The judges to note that the speaker spoke for 5 minutes and 30 seconds.
Thank you, Reva, for that powerful speech. Our next participant is Nikasha Luthra, speaking on the topic, the silver screen's influence, glorification, and its impact.
I'll be starting in 3, 2, and 1. 21st June 2019 marked a rather troubling day for the sanctity of cinema with the release of Kabir Singh, portraying the rather darker side of filmmaking and movies. Kabir, he embodies this dangerously problematic character who, without any hesitation, abuses the supposed love of his life, both physically and emotionally. Kabir, he is portrayed as this vengeful, ungrateful, violent, misogynistic, and patriarchal figure who does whatever he wants, whichever way he sees fit, without any significant consequences. In the aftermath of the film's release, a disturbing trend emerged on social media. Many began standing in front of a camera and slapping the woman they're with for trivial of reasons, for wearing too much lipstick, applying too much makeup, letting their hair down, and dancing inappropriately at parties. This trend, it quickly gained the attention of masses. 4.4 million posts all set to the film's soundtrack, Bekhayali. 4.4 million people influenced. 4.4 million people believing that slapping the woman you're with is an act of love. 4.4 million. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I, Nikasha Luthra, stand before you to present my thoughts on the topic, the silver screen's influence, glorification, and its impact. Today, as we delve into this pressing subject, bridging the realms between media, ethics, and societal impact, we'll be talking about the glorification of crime in cinema. Now, on this topic, there are strong sides from both, but I plan on presenting to you the problem and bringing a cure with me. Firstly, let's consider the argument that these films and documentaries might just indeed glorify criminals. Some, although, plan on educating us. Some try to tell us the impact of crime on the lives of the individuals that commit them and also the entirety of communities. For example, series like Breaking Bad. For example, series like Narcos. But let's be honest here for just 1 second. Only half of us might have seen Breaking Bad. Few rare gems might have heard of Narcos. But you know the one film, let me rephrase, the one cinematic masterpiece that connects us all in an instant. Animal. Animal, the most talked about film of the year, the most blockbustering, overall grossing all over the world. It's sad and pathetic for us as a society to welcome a film like this with open arms, to sit through a 4-hour film where the protagonist is more invincible than Iron Man himself. In this film, the protagonist, Ranbir Kapoor, he is portrayed as this charismatic rebel whose lawlessness is considered bold, thrilling, and admirable. The very famous soundtrack from this film, Arjun Valley, I'm sure everyone sitting here has heard it. But do you know where it originally comes from? It comes from the Dhadiwar music region, which in turn has its roots from the Sikh tradition. Arjun Valley was originally a war cry used to instill courage in others, used to admire and entitle a person who wasn't afraid to stand up against the wrongdoings, who wasn't afraid to stand up against injustice, who wasn't afraid to pick up a weapon to help those in need. Sandeep Reddy Vanga, the director of Animal, chose this song, chose this age-old melody, rather ironically, in the senseless reel that he likes to call a film. He portrays that psychotic individual to be Arjun Valley, who goes around with nothing but an axe in his hand, killing around 200 people, just to heal the wounds of his own souls by spilling the blood of others. You know, the sad reality is that while not all films and documentaries plan on glorifying and glamorizing crime, but it's always the ones that do glorify crime that reach a much wider spectrum, that influence young and impressionable minds. But, as I said before, I'm not here to rant about all the problems. I bring with me a cure. Firstly, the cure is not to shy away or back out from telling stories about crime. Crime is the reality of the world we live in. It is important to address it. We have to talk about it and understand it. But we do so responsibly. When we tell these stories, we have a responsibility, and as Spider-Man said, with great power comes great responsibility. So, what we do is, we highlight the criminal impact that it actually leaves on the world, the pain it causes, the loss people endure, and the way it infects the entirety of communities. We talk about the real heroes, the ones that stand up for justice, that have the courage to say something against wrongdoings, and we hope that change and redemption are indeed possible. Secondly, filmmakers, writers, producers, all these people, they yield the power to challenge narratives, to change the way cinema works. They craft stories that talk about the complexity of the human nature. They craft narratives that explore the nuanced exploration of the criminal impact. We support filmmakers, we support artists that struggle and strive to tell the truth for what it really is. We engage in conversations that challenge the narratives that do not align with our morals, that do not align with our ethics, and most importantly, do not align with our values. Thirdly, and most importantly, you, me, judges, teachers, students, principal man, the chairman, everyone you know, everyone I know is a consumer of media. And therefore, we have the most powerful role of all. We have the power to demand the stories we want. We have the power to boycott the glamorization of crime. We support people who support the truth. In conclusion, you know what cinema? It's nothing but a reflection of our society. But it's also a tool used for shaping how our minds work. Together, let's work towards a culture that values justice, empathy, and integrity over anything else, over the fake allure of lawlessness. Together, let's work towards a future where our entertainment uplifts our humanity rather than glorifying its darkest impulses. This was yours sincerely, Nikasha Luthra, signing off.
The judges to note that the speaker spoke for 7 minutes and 6 seconds.
Thank you, Nikasha, for that enthusiastically delivered argument. Our next participant is Anvi Gupta with the topic Alcohol Abuse in India and the Need for an Immediate Ban.
Respected Prime Minister Modi says that where the youth goes, the country will go. Well, the harsh truth of today's times is that the youth is going to liquor stores and bars. Good morning, everyone. Today I, Anvi Gupta of class 11C2, will be talking about a critical issue plaguing our nation, the widespread abuse of alcohol. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine an alcoholic. Let's call him Ramesh. Ramesh worked very hard to become a chartered accountant. He even gave his CA exams twice under the guise that he could break out of the generational cycle of poverty in his family. He now slaves away 9 hours a day at work and has a miserable life. But he couldn't quit even if he wanted to, because he has to pay his wife's medical bills and his daughter's college fees. Surely in his miserable, sad life, you wouldn't begrudge the guy a drink, right? It's not like he's an alcoholic. He can quit anytime he wants to. He isn't a violent man either. Then why is it that when 1 drink turns to 2, and 2 turns to 3, his wife starts looking less like a person and more like a punching bag? Why is it that Ramesh wakes up with blood on his hands? Why is it that he can't recognize himself in the mirror anymore? Imagine the plight of this family. This isn't just the story of one person or one family. It is the story of 57 million Indians. 57 million people. Do you know how big that number actually is? It's twice the population of Australia. Every year, millions of lives are shattered by the direct and indirect devastating effects of alcohol. It lowers a person's inhibitions, removes their sense of restraint, makes them more prone to violence. The World Health Organization estimates that 55% of cases related to domestic violence stem from alcohol consumption. What I propose to counteract this is a complete liquor ban. And it's not like that's a new topic in India. I mean, Gujarat, Bihar, Manipur, Mizoram, Nagaland are all states which prohibited alcohol decades ago, and they've only benefited from it. They've seen a decrease in crime rates, decreased number of cases involving rash driving, and Bihar has even witnessed a 35% drop in cases of domestic violence. What I'm talking about isn't baseless. In fact, our very own Indian Constitution, in its Article 47, reads, "The state shall endeavor to bring about the prohibition of the consumption of intoxicating drinks which are injurious to health." However, today's state governments have completely disregarded the Constitution and its core values as they turn a blind eye to the suffering of their people. And yes, I know, if you ban something, people will just be more inclined to get their hands on it. But let me ask you something. What do you think is a more disastrous scenario in today's India? Drugs or alcohol? The answer echoed throughout the country is alcohol. Because the reality is that it's always easier to access something which is legal as compared to something which is illegal. Yes, post the ban, the sale of alcohol in the black market would skyrocket, but it would also make it exponentially harder for the common man, for people like Ramesh, to buy and consume alcohol. Sadly, all our state governments are focused on is the revenue that alcohol taxation brings in instead of the well-being of their own people. Let's just take the case of Gujarat versus Punjab. Gujarat, a state where alcohol is banned, and Punjab, where it's not. Gujarat is known for its handicrafts, its wildlife sanctuaries, its tourist spots, and its food, whereas Punjab's name has grown synonymous with drug and alcohol abuse. Is this the future we envision for our country? Everyone knows that I'm not an alcoholic, but what can I do if someone pours me a drink? This couplet by Pankaj Udas perfectly encapsulates states' excuses on alcohol taxation. Oh, we don't need the tax money from alcohol, seems to be the argument. But if people want to get drunk, what else can we do but tax the drink? States fail to understand that alcohol abuse isn't just an individual or their family's struggle. Today, it's a national crisis. Critics of the ban may cite personal liberty, but it is imperative to understand that with freedom comes responsibility. And when this freedom, this alcohol, makes us more prone to violence, leads to accidents and domestic abuse, leads to road rage, it infringes on the rights and security of others. And in no scenario should that ever be justified in a democracy. The time for action is now. Let us not be swayed by short-term economic concerns. The well-being of our families, our communities, and our nation is at stake. A complete ban may seem drastic, but the alternative is far worse. Thousands of lives are lost annually due to alcohol consumption, its preventable deaths and accidents. We need to look at the reality of it rather than the glamour put up by people who are addicted to it. I'm sure you've all heard of the very recent Pune car crash incident, wherein a 17-year-old endangered multiple lives because he was inebriated. Or even the case in Panchkula last year, where an 18-year-old ended a life because he decided to get drunk. Or the case in Thane this year, where a teacher died while crossing the street because someone else decided to get drunk and get behind the wheel. With more than 88% of people under the age of 25 buying alcohol regularly, there are no guarantees that we won't hear about cases like these again. There are no guarantees that there won't be a repeat of this. These numbers are unpleasant and difficult to hear, but they are the reality of today's India. Alcohol is not the only problem plaguing our nation. It's having lax laws and lousy implementation of them. Today, as a society, we are so comfortable with letting wrong and illegal things happen that we have lost our power of looking at things through an objective lens. Because objectively, alcohol is bad. Objectively, alcohol does kill people. Objectively, innocent people do suffer because of it. And no matter what argument you may put forward with the so-called benefit that alcohol brings, it will always kill people. And this is a fact which can never be counter-argued. That is why it is high time for a complete ban. Thank you.
The judges to please note that the speaker spoke for 7 minutes and 3 seconds.
Thank you, Anvi, for that insightful and persuasive oration. Our final participant is Yuvraj Rana, speaking on the topic, There is never a good enough reason to declare war.
I'll be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Imagine a village, houses turned to rubble, smoke wafting, and wails of anguish echoing through the air. Amidst all of this chaos, a mother is frantically searching for her son. Her heart races as she sifts through the debris, calling out her son's name. George? George! All of a sudden, she hears a cry, and she sees him lying on the ground, wounded and scared. His eyes, wide with fear, meet hers. She rushes to his side, cradling him in her arms. Stay with me, we'll get through this, she whispers. But there is no reply from the child. Just silence. The deafening silence of death. The deafening silence of war. Abraham Lincoln modestly said, "There is no honorable way to kill, no gentle way to destroy. There is nothing good in war except its ending." Ladies and gentlemen, today I, Yuvraj Rana, stand before you to deliberate on the issue of immense importance and grave consequence, war. Well, let me ask you all a question here. Is war really a complication for us in today's time? With so much growth and evolution, is war still a worry for us human beings? Well, most of us would think no, of course, but let me tell you. Despite of all the diplomatical advancements, emergence of so-called democracies and peace-building initiatives, war continues to be a persistent and troubling reality in today's time. People and nations often find themselves in conflict over territorial disputes, natural resources, or ideological differences. However, somewhere they tend to believe that war becomes necessary to settle such disagreements. War tech advocates propose that war leads to development. They say that in order to win war, new military equipment is created, and to save lives, new medicines are manufactured. But is all of this worth the deaths of millions of people who were praised this war? Or just for the sake of advancement in warfare? They say this is the cycle of life. They say, they believe, they propagate that war has become a part of our life. But I believe, no matter what these advocates say, war is a problem. And it will continue to remain a problem until we find a plausible solution for this. War will be the reason as to why the earth will suffer and perish. But isn't our planet already gasping for breath? The Vietnam War of 1955, usage of herbicides devastated vast areas of forest and farmlands. World War I, use of chemical bioweapons such as the mustard gas, which led to soil contamination, obliterated the lands of Europe. The infamous World War II, in which atomic bombs were used, especially the ones in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which still emit radiation to this day, not only harming the environment, but the people and their successive generations. People there are born with disabilities for which they are not to blame. Look at the current time, the Yemen civil war, the Syrian civil war, the Russian-Ukraine war, the ongoing Israeli-Palestine war. I have a list I could go on forever, but my point for today is, why war? Is war really necessary? Haven't we learned from our blunders, from our mistakes, knowing the fact what the consequences are, how many lives are at stake? Don't we understand what humanity has to go through every time a war is declared? It's easy to sit back at home and comment on ongoing wars and conflicts by reading about them in the newspapers or watching news channels on television. But the real challenge arrives when you have to be affected by one. Only then will all of us understand how war has the ability, the capability to tear down families and demolish human life. Children getting slaughtered, burnt alive, tortured for days. Children seeing their parents getting beheaded, cut down into pieces. Can any of us imagine that happening to our families? Believe me, scars of war are not only physical, the psychological toll it has on people, the sacrifices they've made, the tortures they've gone through. I believe no victory on this planet can justify this cruelty on humanity. Veterans often return with wounds that are invisible to people, but impactful. Depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, all of these psychological battles continue long after that last gunshot is fired, affecting them forever. War cannot be humanized, only abolished. By careful introspection of this quote by Albert Einstein, we can conclude that he's trying to tell the people that war cannot be justified. War is not an excuse. Neither can it be a reason. War is not a way to solve disputes. But these days, nations find opportunities to just stab each other in the back. Then where do we find solutions to prevent such wars and conflicts? At this instance, at this point in time, we should once again revisit the chapters of our past. History has not only taught us about the repercussions of war, but also how to fight them. People like Mahatma Gandhi and Nelson Mandela, who have had similar ideologies on how to fight against injustices and for human rights, have won wars without advocating bloodshed, never resorting to violence in the first place. They've had faith in humanity and have continued to fight their way through by means of non-violence. Non-violent conflicts aim to convert your opponent, to win over their mind and their heart, to convince them that your point of view is correct. An important element of non-violence is to give your opponent a face-saving way of changing their mind. It always provides a win-win solution whenever possible for both the oppressed and the oppressor. In non-violence conflict, the oppressed does not want his or her opponent to suffer. Instead, they show that they themselves are willing to suffer to bring about change. And this is the reason why it is a great appeal in today's time, because it removes the illogicality of making the world a just place by using violence as a tool. In conclusion, the case against war is as clear as day. War is a Pandora's box, unleashing untold suffering and chaos. Instead of taking up arms and diving headfirst into conflict, we should put our heads together and seek for peaceful resolutions. We should always remember, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So, let's rise above the fray and work towards a world where disputes are resolved through dialogue and where war becomes a relic of the past. Thank you.
The judges to please note that the speaker spoke for 7 minutes and 46 seconds.
Thank you, Yuvraj, for that beautifully crafted speech. Everyone is requested to please subscribe to the Vivek High School YouTube channel, where the videos of each event will be posted. I now request Jaspal ma'am to kindly come up on stage and address the audience.
Everybody, I would just like to congratulate all the participants of this competition. The speeches, I got to know a new word, that was meritocracy. And the speeches were thought-provoking. They were really insightful. The topics were insightful. Especially, I would like that the topic that is the ban on alcoholism, and which could be related to the plight of women. Recently, there is a case. You all know that I teach law, so obviously I have to give evidence of the case. The case is that occurred in West Bengal in a hospital where a woman was raped, and it was by a man who was intoxicated with alcohol. So these topics that the children have taken today were very thought-provoking, and we should always, they were very motivational, and they also gave us good evidence to back up their topics. So in the end also, I would congratulate all the participants, and let's see what the result says. Okay. So, for class 12, the results. First is Lavanya Puri. Second is Kashvi. And third is Saira Mamik. Congratulations to all of you.
Well, now coming to grade 11. In the third position, we have Yuvraj. In the second position, we have Anvi. And first position is backed by Nikasha Luthra. Now, the house results. In the third position, we have Vikramshila. Second position, Gandhara. And first position, Nalanda. Well done, children. Congratulations. Yes. All the participants, please come onto the stage for a group photograph.